girls who go to predominantly white prep schools. I firmly believe if you are sending your young Black daughter to a really nice elite prep school, be prepared not only to pay that tuition now, but to also pay for very expensive therapy in a decade from now. I went to one of those like $50,000, $60,000 a year prep schools from 6th grade up until 12th grade. I played lacrosse, field hockey, crew on the Charles River. It was also a New England prep school. I think there's also a regional nuance here. It was psychological warfare. Spending your most formative years not being the standard of beauty, being ostracized, oftentimes being the only one in your class, having to learn about slavery in a very unsafe environment. I don't think parents understand the psychological cost and warfare on young Black girls to go to these elite prep schools. Forget about having a boyfriend. Forget about going to prom. Forget about learning about race and consciousness in a healthy and safe way. Forget about if you're smart, if you're talented, if you're pretty, even if your parents have money. It is torture. You cannot fully know yourself and also be self-aware and develop a healthy sense of self in a space like that. I refuse. You can argue with me if you want. You can't do it. And I'm saying this for young Black girls specifically because I think young Black boys, though the trauma might also still exist, I think they have very different experiences than young Black girls who go to prep school.
So this has to be talked about, as a Black girl who grew up for the first 11, 12 years of my life in a predominantly white area. I was one of maybe 2 or 3 Black people in my entire elementary school. It definitely is resonating what this young woman is saying, okay? It can be so detrimental having our Black children in predominantly white schools, especially during their teenage years or during their adolescent years, where it's like they're trying to really define who they are. And I remember personally definitely being called names like the N-word. I'm not going to say it because I'm not trying to get demonetized, but yeah, I've definitely been called out of my name. I've been asked genuine questions about me being Black and my culture, and it definitely made me feel ostracized a little bit. Some of that stuff, that was said to me was definitely in malice and out of hate, but a lot of it was just out of ignorance and being that, children are very honest usually, and they also are sponges. So I know that a lot of those kids I grew up with repeated the things that they heard their, white parents say. But it definitely is a balancing act because you want your child to have the best education, and unfortunately 9 times out of 10 the best education is in the predominantly white areas. And so you have to bargain with your own culture. Do you want your children to still be around black kids as well, or do you just want them to have the best education, period? Because education is one thing, finances is one thing, but knowing who you are in this world, having a strong sense of yourself is valuable. It's not as tangible as, say, finances and degrees, but it's still valuable to grow up in a community or be surrounded by a community where you feel like you're a part of it, like you feel empowered to be yourself. You don't feel ashamed to be yourself. So I do also agree that, being a Black woman, especially if you're a dark-skinned Black woman, it's going to be even harder for you to be brought up in these areas. You're definitely going to be ostracized even more. I am a light-skinned, Black woman. So I grew up light skinned, but even as light skinned, I got called nigger and stuff like that. Oh, sorry, y'all. I got called the N-word. So it's like, I know that darker skinned tones have a harder time, being accepted in the predominantly white areas. And that's just, it is what it is. It's unfortunate and it's sad. And it has to be stopped, because, there is Black wealth. There are Black people doing well for themselves, and they want to send their children to the best schools as well. But they don't want their kids to be bullied. They don't want their mental health to be an issue. And those are the things you have to think about when sending your Black kids to a predominantly white school. So I don't know, y'all. Let me know what you think about this topic below. Would you send your child to a predominantly white school, even if they're the only one in their class that's Black, and it may come with trials and tribulations? Or are you just going to let your kid rock out with, people who look more like them? personally, like I said, I did go to a majority white school, but the upside of that was, I really wanted to get in touch with my, black side. I mean, I always knew I was black, of course, but, I went to a predominantly white school, then I went to a mixed school, and then I ended up going to a HBCU university. And that to me was the icing on top of the cake. It was a cherry on top of the cake because it really allowed me to soak up who I was. And I felt like for the first time that I didn't have to code switch. I didn't have to filter myself. I didn't have to think, is that a microaggression? Is this person, secretly shading my natural hair? Like, I didn't have to think about any of those for 4 to 5 years. And it was an amazing time. I made friendships and connections that I still have to this day, almost 20 years later. So going to HBCU was definitely, a wise choice for me. And I feel like, honestly, all black people should go to HBCUs at least for 1 year, because it is an experience that you won't get anywhere else. You just won't get it nowhere else. It's just, come on, stand up if you're HBCU grad. But y'all, yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments below, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.